This is the third volume of the Zeteticism series by Zeteticism.com. This is the second volume in the series to do with the heavens. In volume 2, we uncovered 3 pieces of evidence that sundogs are actually reflections of the back of the sun off of the sky dome ceiling. That the sundogs are reproducible experimentally with a simple experiment with a lighter inside of a very smooth spherical dome-shaped salad bowl. Also, the second sun, or the double sun, also was perfectly reproducible in the salad bowl and is a natural outcome of sundog activity viewed in the sky. However, the professional science descriptions of sundogs do not account for any of the shape and structure of the sundogs and the double sun, yet the salad bowl experiment does very well. The third piece of evidence uncovered in Volume 2 was the fact that sundogs can be measured to change sizes in the sky as the sun traverses across the sky. This is also perfectly reproducible in the salad bowl. In this volume, number 3 of the Zeteticism series, we will uncover 2 more pieces of evidence which are far stronger and far more convincing than the first 3 discussed in Volume 2. I am not trained in the physics of optics, so in time it would be hoped by the filmmaker that others could contribute to this study to make sure that all details are correct in my analysis in this volume, the previous volume, number 2, and volumes after this, which will continue to discuss the sky dome revealed to us by way of sundogs. This is a scientific, or more specifically zetetic study, and therefore it is assumed it is a study that needs the help of many minds, not just one. Improving on the work, doing better experimentation, moving the findings further and further, checking for any errors, making modifications where needed. The science or zetetic work behind sundogs could reveal that the Earth is merely a plane underneath a domed sky ceiling, something that was apparently known in previous times, so it would be a rediscovery. This volume and all the other volumes of the Zeteticism series are merely an attempt to be absolutely and purely empirical about discovering the nature of the world around us. The way that professional academics describe and explain sundogs is they maintain that the sun's light shining into the atmosphere shines at an angle off of ice crystals in the air, which creates sundogs. I've never seen this demonstrated in the lab or created artificially other than through the sky dome experiment that we're doing with the salad bowl in this video. And to my knowledge, the structure of the sundog is not explained by this theory. I call the professional academic position the PSIC model for sundogs. The Professional Science Ice Crystals Model is what that PSIC stands for. That will be in opposition to the zetetic eye model, as I call it, which involves the thesis that the back of the sun is reflected off the sky dome, and that's what creates a sundog, and that's reproducible with the salad bowl and hopefully other more sophisticated experiments myself or others will do in the future. One can think of these theories of sundogs and the attempts to explain them in 2 parts. One, there is clearly sunlight reflecting off of atmospheric moisture, which is illuminated and brightened since the sunlight is reflected off the surface of the precipitation, the moisture in the air. And that precipitation, that moisture in the air, is what is illuminated in seeing a sundog. The PSIC model and the zetetic eye model both involve this position. The zetetic eye model involves the thesis that inverted light reflection off of the sky dome is coming into the atmosphere and at a convergence point from being reflected off the concave dome surface. When light is reflected off of a concave surface, it converges to create an image that can be seen at a convergence point. The sundog is the convergence point of the sun's light off the sky dome, according to the zetetic eye model, and the ice crystals and or any precipitation in the air at the convergence point will be illuminated by the incoming reflected light. And that's what one sees when one sees a sundog. So this fellow here has the concave surface. He's got it angled where the sunlight's coming in. It's angled sort of in the same way as the diagram there you see in the top right corner. When his hand's too far out, it's not where the light's converging, where the image is formed. The image here is just the sunlight, the intensity of bright sunlight. And when he moves his hand into the right zone, moves it forward when he moves it toward the panel a little bit, it's illuminated. You can see it right there. That's what's going on with the sundog. So you can see here in these clouds, the light is in place. When the moist air moves through it, it's illuminated with sundog patterns, light imagery. I think that this is more straightforward with the sky dome zetetic eye model than it is the PSIC model. The PSIC model will involve sunlight coming in and being illuminated, just like the zetetic eye model. The PSIC model depends on ice crystals being oriented a specific way in the atmosphere when the air is blowing around. And it's hard to imagine how the crystals can be oriented specifically when the air is moving around so much. And furthermore, we can see right here we have clouds and so forth. It's not just, Arctic type of ice crystal, icy air that creates this. You can have it happen in a snowstorm, in a rainstorm, and on the horizon on the beach in Florida, in the clouds. All the zetetic eye model requires is you have a convergence of light, and there's a surface there for the light to reflect off of, to be illuminated by the convergence of reflected incoming light. Much cleaner than the PSIC model, which requires oriented light crystals in a moving air mass. Very difficult theorization. And with the PSIC model, much cleaner with the zetetic eye model. According to the PSIC model, the light is reflected off of ice crystals at an angle like this. The light does not come in an inverted fashion, as happens with the zetetic eye model. Instead, it just comes in at an angle like this. So if there's anything blocking right in this area here, a sundog should not be perceived if something is blocking. This will be discussed in much detail very shortly, but let's just look at a quick example as a way to introduce your mind to the complex concepts that will be discussed. Look at this sundog here. It's down in a river valley in Calgary, Canada. But how can a sundog be down in a river valley? Isn't the light coming in from behind it at a 22-degree angle? But we can clearly see right there the hill is blocking that channel. We will see example after example like this, where the channel of light needed, according to the PSIC model at least, for the sundog to form is blocked by buildings, by mountains, and so forth. The PSIC model cannot explain this. See right here, we're looking at weather.com. They give you the diagram down there in the bottom corner. Let's zoom in. You can see that the sunlight goes in this channel here from the word sun to the hexagon and then back to the viewer down at the bottom of the triangle there. But the hill is clearly right there in the way, in this zone right here. So the PSIC model cannot explain this. Light is coming from a different location than the PSIC model involves. In this documentary, we will find that the light comes from a different direction because it is an inverted incoming light source. This will be discussed in great detail. It will be validation that a sundog is a reflection off a sky ceiling of the light of the back of the sun. Now that's the first part of the models for sundogs. Both models involve the idea that sunlight illuminates moisture in the air, but comes from different directions. The second aspect of a theory that is needed to explain sundogs, is why the structure exists in the sky, all the intricate shapes and repeatable structures and formations of a sundog, which varies according to how far the sun is from its appearance on the horizon. To my knowledge, the PSIC model does not have any explanation whatsoever to explain why the incredibly intricate structures form as sunlight reflects off ice crystals. On the other hand, the Zetetic eye model not only has an explanation, but many parts of it are reproducible by experimentation, as we'll be doing in this video. To put it in the terminology of the science of optics, we can say that what is happening is one is seeing the image of the light source object being reflected off a concave mirror. And depending on one's positioning under the concave surface determines whether or not one can see what is reflected or not. When one is viewing the halo and one sees the halo, that means the halo light is being reflected back and the reflected image can be viewed. This is where the light converges to create an image. But what is happening with the sundog is sunlight and a halo structure is being reflected back, where the light will converge to create a picture image, which comprises a halo with thicker and thinner concentration points, will be viewed around the sun. That's precisely what's seen in the bowl experiment, and precisely what appears to be going on when one observes a sundog in the sky. The sundog is of direct observational, i.e. directly empirical, evidence of a reflection off the sky dome. The following diagrams show how the reflection which creates the sundog occurs. Here you see the sun reflecting out from near the center to the walls of the dome. The areas where the three orange lines on each side end are areas where the Zetetic eye sky dome has reflected light in a halo structure off the side of the sun facing away from the observer of the sundog. There the light is reflected back to the central region, but in an inverted image due to the concavity of the surface where the reflection is occurring is sent back to the center. So one side of the halo will appear on the opposite side of the sun. In other words, the reflection on the left will show up as a sundog on the right side. This is why in some pictures, such as the sundog from Park City, Utah, that you are seeing on your screen right now, have a sundog which can appear inside the landscape, such as in front of this mountain. One may be inclined to believe that the sundog on the left there is supposed to be itself directly reflecting straight back to the left side of the halo reflection off the dome. But that is not correct due to the fact that there is no concentration point where the light converges to form the reflected image, which is seen in the sundog as a concentration of sunlight illuminating moisture in the air, which is what is seen when a sundog is observed. So the light actually comes in through the area of the sun on an angle, forms an image point where the sunlight is illuminated by the moisture in the air to create the visual experience of the sundog. Some sundogs, such as this one from Park City, Utah, appear extremely close. If you're looking at the left sundog, it only appears to be just a matter of feet from where the camera is, perhaps a number of 100 feet right before that very close mountain just beyond the houses. But then look at this sundog. This one is very far away. You can see the left side is blocked out by the cloud cover, so it exists behind the clouds, the opposite scenario of the Park City, Utah picture you just saw. In sum, what we are about to discover is there are very specific mechanics involved in sundogs, seemingly all of which are not discussed in the PSIC model, which contradict or are impossible within the framework of the PSIC model, and which indicate to us that we live in a sky dome enclosed flat earth system. What we will next do is show the specific empirical evidence for the claims that I just made. A good way to outline the sundog physics that we have just laid out would be by an example of a sundog in Moscow. This film footage can help us understand the mechanics of sundogs. Notice in this Moscow sundog that the sundog appears to be inside of the landscape. It appears to be very close. In many sundogs we will see behind the sundog is blocked by mountains, clouds, hills, and so forth, as if the sundog is reaching down into the landscape as you're seeing here. Perhaps the most important feature to understand about sundogs is that they are inverted light reflections off of a concave dome ceiling. We will be able to directly show this empirically with film footage I have taken and others have taken of sundogs, where we will find that sundogs are only possible if they are inverted images. And the only way they would be inverted images is if they are reflected off a concave surface, such as a spherical dome ceiling above us. As you're watching, please take careful note of certain features of the sundogs, such as the shape of the sundogs on either side of the sun, the shape of the sun itself. Usually during sundog activity it appears as an oval, a diamond, or a hexagon, interestingly, which will be discussed later. Please also note if a sundog seems to extend into the landscape, as we just saw, or if one does not, as you're seeing right here where the sundog is behind the building. The point of this Moscow clip is introduced in this picture here, where you have the sundog is not extending into the landscape in front of the buildings, and the sun is also blocked by the buildings as well. Notice that those happen at the same time. The reason this is so important will become apparent in a moment. Now here in this close-up image, we see the sun is not blocked by anything. We have direct line of sight to the sun, and the sundog you will see to the right there, part of it is appearing in front of the building. In other words, the building appears to exist between the line of sight between sundog and camera, where it should apparently block the view of the sundog. But as we will see all throughout this Moscow video, that does not happen. You will see the sundog in front of buildings, and we'll find out this is because it is an inverted optical reflected image. Here is the first of a series of quite striking images that we will see where sundog appears completely blocked from its background, as we just saw initially with the building blocking the right sundog. This may appear quite mysterious that this sundog image shows up in the shade, but we will see shortly that there's a very simple explanation, one that we would absolutely expect from the Zetetic sky dome model of what sundogs actually are, the reflected light images off the dome ceiling. And furthermore, these sundog images in the shady zones blocked from their background of the bright sundog specifically contradict the PSIC model of sundogs. To restate, it's very important to note that the PSIC model is specifically contradicted in the clearest terms by what you're going to see in this Moscow video. To my knowledge, this very common aspect of sundogs is undiscussed and unaddressed in the PSIC model and its proponents. The PSIC model involves the idea that if you look at the diagram in the top right, the sun shines on some sort of precipitation and or air moisture. To my knowledge, the PSIC model only involves ice crystals, icy air is the way I refer to it. And that air somehow, theoretically, creates a sort of mirror where light reflects back to an observer who's positioned in the proper place in order to be able to observe this. However, if you're seeing right here, the Moscow picture, and we're going to see in a minute that this is not camera glare. This image of the sundog here should not exist if the PSIC model is correct, since it should be blocked off from its light source. In fact, the PSIC model has no way of explaining exactly what could possibly be. It's not supposed to exist. There is no explanation for its existence, according to the PSIC model. However, with the Sky Dome Zetetic Eye model, not only is there an explanation for why this image exists, but the Zetetic Eye model specifically predicts the existence of these images down inside of valleys, in front of mountains, where the mountains behind seem to block the sundog, yet it is still visible close up in the landscape. Some sundogs seem to be quite far away, yet right up to the observer, only a few feet away seemingly, is the existence of a piece of sundog image. It's as if sundogs are reaching into the landscape in some cases, often quite close to the observer. There are many scenarios where it seems a sundog is blocked off from its background behind it, where pieces of the sundog can have mountains and hills and buildings and so forth in front of them, yet the sundogs still appear in the shade, such as you're seeing right here and throughout this Moscow video. Here you can see the sundog fragment. When I first saw this, I thought perhaps this would be something like camera glare or an afterglow inside the camera equipment, but it's very easily seen that there's no such afterglow or camera glare that is causing this, because you see the sun right now traversing across the building as well, yet it does not do what the sundogs do. There's no image present. Only the sundogs are producing this image One might believe that this image showing up on the shady side of the building is due to camera glare or some sort of camera malfunction due to the intensity of light hitting the camera, causing some sort of afterglow inside the camera. To find out if that's the case, we need to look at the buildings when the sun is behind them to see if anything shows up on the shady side of the building and compare that to what we see going on with the sundogs and they're showing up on the shady side. Let's look at a comparison. This is the first picture on the left there of the sundog that we just saw in the comp, and then on the right there is the sun. You can clearly see the sundog on the left, nothing on the right. You can see in the first three pictures the sundog image is present on the shaded side of the building, blocked off from what is typically thought as to be the actual sundog in the background. But then the sun goes behind the building also, and on the bottom right you see a picture of where the sun is, and you don't see the same marking like you do with the sundog. The sun is not giving rise to the same image on the shaded side of the building. This verifies that some sort of malfunction in the camera equipment, an afterglow of some sort, or some sort of glare created by the intensity of the light, is specifically not what is creating the sundog image on the shaded side blocked off from its background. So the sundog is actually there, at least a faint segment of it. So sundogs are not just far off in the distance, they extend from where you believe they are in the distance, seemingly up to, in some cases, right near the observer. So sundogs have much more coverage of surface area than one might guess in many cases. You can see here in these stills, sundog traversing across the building. It's really important to notice in the footage here, comparing these two pictures as the sundog traverses the building, that this image of the sundog is appearing on the face of the building most opposite of the sun. So this light is not coming from the sun, and it's not coming from the sundog behind it. The image appearing on the back side of the building, I'd like to repeat, is a very straightforward and clear contradiction to the PSIC model. Please note that as the sundog traverses the entirety of the back side of the building most opposite the sundog starts off quite visible in its trajectory across the back sides of the building, but then about halfway through starts to greatly fade from view, yet you can still very faintly see it all the way through to the other side. Why this is the case will become clear shortly when we start to discuss the inverted nature of the physics of the optics of the reflected light of a sundog. If you're looking carefully at these buildings, their orientation, seems there's a slight gap between them at a very specific angle pointing towards the sundog to the right, which is visible. This is an extremely important image that you're seeing on your screen here, because it will explain the only possible direction that light on the building there on the left can be coming from to create that faint part of the sundog that we are viewing up close. And the only direction can be in the line of the corridor that the sides of those two buildings make, which appears to point somewhere in the vicinity of the right sundog. Now in some pictures of this Moscow footage, you can see the sun illuminated on the ground to tell exactly which areas are shaded and which areas are in sunlight. However, with these two buildings you cannot, because the building that the arrow is pointing to right there seems to be blocking the ground from being illuminated by sunlight. However, look at the side of the building on the left. You can clearly see a line which appears to be directly in the line of the top of that building, which is blocking out the sunlight from the ground. That has the red arrow pointed on it. And that line continues direct to the sun. So it appears quite straightforward that we are seeing a line right here where the bottom is shaded. There's no visible sundog light below in the shaded area there, but above in that shaded area there is. So this tells us furthermore that the light is coming from the direction of the sundog. So we know it's coming from that direction. This sundog image that's showing up in the shaded and opposite side from the sun in these buildings. And furthermore, we know it's coming somewhere from the right, from the opposite side. This is very straightforward empirical evidence for the inversion of a sundog image of a concave surface, just like a spoon. Where you look in the concave surface of the spoon, you will see your image inverted. The only way you can explain this Moscow footage right here of light from the direction of the sun creating that image on the left building there, the faint image of the sundog, is if the light that's creating that faint aspect is coming from the opposite direction, which would indicate that the sundog image is inverted. Extending below is what seems to be a continuation of the sundog's shape, and it has a rainbow element to it, indicating that it's not camera glare. is another aspect of the sundog. The sun is blocked, and the sundog behind it is blocked in the parts where we can see it on the shaded side of the building. The only direction the light can be coming is from the right, at the same angle we just saw with the corridor between the two other buildings. Sundog becoming extremely visible here on the shady side of that building. That building's just a little bit further from the camera than the example from the closer up building that we were just examining, yet the sundog is intensified in its visibility and color that much. Here's another example. Sundog very visible, especially in the initial phases where it goes into the shaded side of the building. And we've got the same scenario. Sun is blocked, sundog is blocked. The sundog nevertheless appears. There's only one path, one channel, one opening by which there can be light that will travel from the direction of the sun's part of the sky to illuminate that shady side of that building. The light can be coming from to create that faint piece of the sundog on the left, and that is from the right again. Third time. So as you can see, sundogs are not something that's just in the distance in some cases. Later in this documentary, we will discuss how the sundogs that do not appear to dip down into the landscape up to the observer are those which are involving the sun near the horizon, and those which do not involve that and seem more distant are those which are higher up and involve often the helix circle.
Well, look at it. It's like all these different, you can see it's snowing up there.
And going back to the Moscow sundog. Now on the opposite side, we have the same phenomenon happening. The sundog is blocked behind. The sun is starting to come into view here, and yet we see light which appears to be creating now on the right side a faint piece of sundog, and where light only can be coming again from its opposite direction, from the opposite side of the sky. Now in this footage here, watch the sundog on the right. It does not continue when it goes behind the building. You do not see the faint aspect of it traverse the backside of the building. We would expect that as it approached the left half of the building, that it would start to come into view as light from the opposite side of the sky was able to angle in to create the faint sundog image. But notice this building right here is blocking that line of light incoming from the opposite side of the sky. So we are seeing yet further evidence that the faint sundog image was coming from the opposite side of the sky. And notice right here, the right sundog, as it starts to go behind the building, does not continue where the faint smudge of the sundog is visible on the shaded side. And that's because, look to the left, light is being blocked from the opposite side by the size of this building. So before continuing this Moscow sundog footage, let's analyze specifically what we are seeing with the inverted nature of the sundog image. If you want to understand precisely what a sundog is and how it gives specific, clear empirical evidence for the existence of the sky dome above us, you have to understand its inversion processes. The intricate mechanics that we will discuss will only be replicated with the zetetic eye model. To summarize, I'd like to fully back up and completely start over and restate everything in very simple, new terms in order to get a fresh perspective of what is being discussed. So let me give the following terse summary, which will be a summary of Volume 2 of the Zeteticism series and this Volume number 3 up to the current point. The summary goes as follows. We humans here on the Earth plane look into the sky, and if we're paying attention, we often can see these shapes called sundogs, which can have varying structures and can be rather simple to incredibly complex and shocking and extending all around the entire sky. Some of the more basics of these structures can be replicated in a glass bowl with a lighter, as you've seen already. That leads one to wonder, are the shapes seen in the sky, are these also due to a reflected dome, due to the astonishing similarity that's been discussed already in Volume 2 and in this volume, and which will continue in much greater technical detail up to the end of this documentary, Volume 3. So as we continue to practice and learn how to create sundogs in the salad bowl, we learn more and more where to place the lighter in the bowl to more and more carefully, closely replicate what is seen with the sundog in the sky. One first learns to create the basic sundog. And the similarities become enough that one continues to wonder if the shapes in the sky could be because of a similar situation as the glass salad bowl. But now we find that the sundogs in the sky are actually inverted images. This is because in some of the footage we've seen so far, and much more that we will see up to the end of this documentary, shows sundogs clearly blocked from their background, where light can only be coming from the opposite direction, exactly in the direction as if we were looking at an optically inverted image. The only explanation for how the sundogs can be cut off from their background, such as in the Park City, Utah picture, where the sundog was clearly in front of the mountain, close up to the observer camera. Yet there it existed, and there was a clear path through where the area of the sun is, the opposite direction where the light could have come from. The only way sundogs like the Moscow footage and the Park City, Utah picture work is if the sundog is actually a reflected, inverted image. We can derive this just from simply analyzing the sundogs themselves, where the very mechanics and physics, the nature of sundogs, reveal to us that their light source has to be incoming light from a domed source. Somehow the light is coming in a domed shape, and that light structure is actually an inverted image, as just discussed. But those 2 points are only possible in the sky dome ceiling scenario. So sundogs, their very specific technical physics, reveals to us that they must be light reflections off a domed sky ceiling. There's no other explanation that could explain all these technical aspects of sundogs in any way other than this: that we live in a structure that appears to have been built by an intelligence. The structure has to be a spherical structure because the light reflection off the back of the sun to create the sundogs that we humans on the plane of Earth see only works if the reflection is off a spherical inner surface. So the dome of the ceiling must be spherical. So let's now delve into the technical physics of sundogs a bit more. Sundogs appear to be light that is interacting with moisture in the air. The PSIC model involves the idea of ice crystals creating prisms. When light is reflected from the sun, if an observer is at a certain angle, they will fall in the line of sight of this prismed light, and that's what a sundog is, according to the PSIC model. The problem with the PSIC model is there's no explanation for the spectacular and often incredibly detailed sundog features, which can extend all the way across the sky with multiple halos, always in similar, predictable arrangements depending on how far from the horizon the sundogs exist. That is a serious weakness of the PSIC model, because the prominent feature of a sundog is its shape. Sunlight interacting with ice crystals to create a prism is a very simple theory. How those ice crystals can form spectacularly intricate features that extend for incredible lengths across the sky of great geometrical beauty, where light only exists in very thin strands to create lines across the sky. It's extremely hard to fathom how that could happen according to the PSIC model. Why would light only reflect and/or prism in these specific patterns? For example, the parhelia circle, which is a halo which intersects with the 22-degree circle, which is the one that has the sundogs. How would sunlight create this thin line strand in a loop across the sky? What possible angles of light from the sun to the air, which contains ice crystals, to your observing eyes and/or camera could interact with the air in such a way? The far more easy to digest theory is simply that these are light reflections off a dome sky ceiling off the back of the sun, which can be easily replicated with this lighter in a salad bowl or other similar apparatuses down to incredibly minute and precise details. Where this is further bolstered by the fact that the specific physics of the sundogs viewed on the Earth plane directly point to only one possible explanation. They come from a dome-shaped source which inverted the light that creates the sundog. The light is incoming and converges. It's another sign of reflection. Reflection off concave surfaces creates convergence. So at the point where the sunlight converges, it creates an image. Well, the image is of the back of the sun. So it's just very intense light and whatever else what we call sunlight comprises. The point is that if there's something there to reflect the light, according to the model of this documentary, all that's needed is for light to be able to reflect off a surface where it converges off the domed ceiling, where it creates its image, and the reflected sunlight will illuminate the moisture in the air at those convergence areas, wherein one sees this illuminated air moisture in the very specific reflective patterns that were reflected off of the dome ceiling, and one sees Sundog. This fellow here has a concave surface, a satellite dish, and he's going to be describing how to refurbish it, and he first discusses the concave nature of it and how light reflects off of it, and how you can produce the image reflected out in front of the concave surface. Then you will see the image of what is reflected, in this case just simply sunlight. Here you see his hand. It appears that there's some sort of a halo on his hand. You can see his fingers are dark, his thumb is dark, there's the bright spot there in the middle of his palm, and surrounding that appears to be a circle. Now the orientations of the light in this example, of course, are very different than the sky dome ceiling, because here we're dealing with the sun that is far away and then a concave surface that is close. Put in other words, you see the hand here and the concave surface to the right. The sun would be in between those two in the sky dome model, and the hand there would represent the ice crystals reflecting the converged light that reflected off the dome surface of the sky dome ceiling. That will lead to a little bit different sort of characteristics in this example, but nevertheless we will still get convergence right here out in front of the concave surface, which is what you're seeing. This is precisely why a sundog feels like it's in the landscape nearby one, because in fact it is. You're seeing a picture of the back of the sun reflecting off the sky dome. You're seeing it in the distance, but where the light is to create the image of the reflection that you're seeing is actually up close. So you're seeing an up close representation of something that is far off in the distance reflected off the sky dome. To my knowledge, there are a number of ways that the optics of a patulous radial light source, namely the sun, inside of a spherical glass or very smooth reflective surface could give rise to halo structures that will be seen in an inverted fashion. But as we saw earlier, it appears that the sun and the sundog are very close to each other, always remaining in a very central location. In other words, a horizontal line going through the sun to either sides of the dome ceiling will be such that the sun and earth plane are always near the central regions of that and don't stray so far towards the edges. It is the filmmaker's estimate that only about 25% of the line is the area where the earth plane and the sun exist. However, this is conjectural and theoretical, and it could be an incorrect theoretical comment that could be modified in the future. And the exact specific physics and structure of the sky dome itself were analyzed a bit in Volume 2, but that was all theoretical information, and a further volume in the future of this Zeteticism series will deal very specifically with the physics and optics of the sky dome ceiling. Now, returning to our discussion of the physics of optics of a radial light source inside of a reflective sphere, it is the filmmaker's belief that the orientation and arrangements of the sun and the earth plane are such where the sun is in between the center of curvature and the focal point, and the sundog is on the other side of the center of curvature. To repeat, however, this could be otherwise, and it will be hashed out in finer detail in a future volume. But for now, the filmmaker believes this is the case due to the fact that it so well replicates and maps what is observed with the inverted sundogs in the sky that it appears to be the correct scenario. On this scenario, the sundog on the other side of the center of curvature as the sun will be enlarged compared to the sun and inverted. This is very basic physics of optics. Let's watch this clip to see it described.
The third one, we're going to do the same thing again. Now we have moved the object so it's between C and F. So I pick up my nice sharp pencil and my straight edge. I draw my first ray going in parallel, coming out through F. It must go through this point. The next one goes in through F, comes out parallel. So once again, it must go through this point. You have to draw it through this point. It's not just some random angle or some random ray. It's the one that goes through F. And there is the image. And you'll notice now that the object is between C and F, the image will always be greater than C away from the lens, away from the mirror. The image distance is greater than C. That's what DI stands for, image distance. The image will always be magnified. It's bigger than the object. The image will always be inverted, and it's still a real image. Okay? So you should notice for the first three, we drew them all exactly the same way. Parallel F, F, parallel. And the image appears where those light rays converge, those light rays cross.
With everything we saw in Volume 2 of Zeteticism, including the elegant empirical verification that the Sun is very close and circles the Earth plane in precisely the way the flat Earth model describes, and in shocking contradiction to the heliocentric model of the solar system, it would seem that the far more logical, empirical, practical, simple, scientific, and less theoretical as opposed to directly observed would appear to be the sky dome model, what I call the zetetic eye. I don't know how the conclusions we've drawn to this point can avoid that thesis, and the PSIC model, not only without any explanation, was directly contradicted by simple empirical evidence such as the Park City, Utah picture, more so the Moscow footage. The picture you're seeing on your screen is a possible approximate scenario of what the top view of our Earth plane may look like inside the zetetic eye sky dome ceiling. So we live inside of a ball, where it's as if the Earth is a circle, or more specifically, a flat plane that is circular, or perhaps very slightly concave. Where the white ball there is the Sun, it is reflecting the halo structure off the sky dome, and observer O there will be in the area where the reflection converges to create the inverted image that will be observable in O's position. Now let's go through some of the more technical ways sundogs, when seen in the sky, so strikingly replicate the complicated yet straightforward physics of optics of a light inside of a dome sphere. One interesting feature I noticed between the bowl and the sky is when the lighter goes further down into the horizon, in other words, to the bowl opening that is. At the lowest point that the sundog would exist in the bowl, at the horizon, or opening, the sundogs would be more leveled with the sun itself. Whereas if the lighter would go higher, the sundogs would start to appear as if they were higher in the sky than the sunball, unlike the horizon where they were more in line with each other, level with each other. And this is precisely what can be replicated in the bowl. Lower the lighter, and you get a scenario such as with the lower horizon level or near the horizon level sundogs, where the sun and sundogs form more of a straight line. Then if the sundog is higher in the sky, they start to form this V structure. Well, in truth, what's going on, that's the dome in the salad bowl. From your angle where you're looking at the light, where the sun is reflecting, it has its most intensive reflection convergence area where it forms that bulge on the side, which gets higher faster than the sun ball as the sun rises. In other words, as the lighter rises in the bowl. The sundogs in the sky and the sundogs in the bowl act in precisely the same way, where the higher up, the more V-like structure emerges, and the lower down, the straight horizontal line comprises the sun and sundogs. But there's one exception to this. On high elevations and mountains, I noticed that this pattern broke down. So let's examine the up and down motion of the sundogs with respect to the height of the lighter, i.e. sun, in the salad bowl to see how this is verified experimentally. So watching here, you can see we got the bowl angled in kind of a way where I think it artificially makes everything look a little bit more V-like, but regardless, you can compare these two. You saw the first there, and then there's the second. Very different. Clearly V-like structure when the lighter is up higher in the bowl. But how much higher? You can see right there on the left is the lower sun lighter. You see that leaf circled, and then it moved to the bottom half of the sun. So that's that small of a shift in the positioning of the lighter slash sun led to that dramatic V-like change. So this would be only an approximation of what's going on in the sky. We would need to do better experiments to mimic more accurately what's going on specifically in the observed sky. But the point here is that this V-like structure is very simply reproduced experimentally with the bowl experiment. So there's yet another very precise, specific aspect of the sundogs, which is perfectly and simply reproduced in the salad bowl. I'll leave it, however, to others who are more expert than I in the field of optics to figure out and map out all the specific mathematics and so forth involved. It's very important to note that the bowl experiment actually is extremely sloppy and does not give us enough detail for what is going on with the sun under the sky dome. There are a few reasons for saying this, which were introduced in Volume 2 of Zeteticism. The bowl does not have the same reflectivity as the sky, and the lighter is far brighter in the bowl than the sun is in the sky dome. So therefore, the bowl and the lighter does not mimic precisely enough the sky dome and the sun. And the salad bowl lighter experiment is unfortunately only an approximation. I attempted to make a better experiment than the lighter and salad bowl. I got an exercise ball, and over it I did paper mache. I let it dry, and then I painted the inside to try to make it smooth like the inside of the bowl. I thought that this would give me a much larger space to work in, where I thought the lighter would give me a much better mimicry of what's going on with the sun and the sky dome. However, the experiment failed, but the failed results gave rise to some other very interesting information. Specifically, the exercise ball dome, as we might want to call it, would not reflect a halo, no matter where I would put the lighter. It appears that the paper mache painted sky dome in the lighter experiment did not have enough smoothness to reflect a halo. This gives us a big indication of what the nature of the sky dome is like. And it has a glass-like smoothness, which is required for a halo to reflect from the sunlight of the back of the sun. While the salad bowl is extremely smooth, and the sky dome also appears to be of the same nature, however, there's a difference between the salad bowl and the sky. Namely, it appears the sun reflects less light off the sky dome than the lighter does inside the bowl. We therefore get thinner lines in the sundog and parhelic circle in the sky than we do in the salad bowl, where we get these very thick lines of light reflecting, creating halo structure. This is one of a few ways that the salad bowl experiment is different than the sun and the sky dome, and where the salad bowl experiment is a distortion, unfortunately, of the situation in the sky. Hopefully myself or others in the future will be able to create far better models where we can mimic a full sundog and parhelic circle, and also the larger 46-degree halo, as it's called, and many of the other parts of the incredible, intricate nature of the sundog. For reasons discussed in this documentary, we can add 2 more pieces of evidence to our list that we showed at the start of the documentary as to what specific empirical evidence we have that a sundog is a reflection of the back of the sun off the sky dome ceiling. The sundog inversion physics is very powerful empirical evidence for the concept that human beings live in an enclosed flat earth plane under a dome sky ceiling. Future volumes of this Zeteticism series will continue this project of dissecting the mechanics of sundogs in order to discover the physics of our reality that we exist in. We are told that sundogs are very rare. However, as you're seeing in your screen right now, I was able to film quite a few of them in a stretch of a matter of days in the latter parts of making this Volume 3 documentary in the Zeteticism series. There came a point in September of 2015 where suddenly I started seeing sundogs quite regularly in the sky. And it was almost the case that every time I looked up into the sky where it wasn't completely overcast and where there was some cloud or type of precipitation or moisture in the air by which converged light could illuminate, a sundog would be in the sky. You are seeing examples of those on your screen now. However, this suddenly, all of a sudden stopped, where I no longer saw any sundogs around the start of October 2015. The filmmaker does not know the significance of these points, but wanted to mention them for a point of interest for other researchers who may take up this Sundog Sky Dome project.